We started on the 20th of November, but anyway, you can join. You can join. We'll be happy to see at each webinar. So on the next slide, you can see the schedule of the webinars ahead, including today's. So we'll be covering 6 topics in our next or forthcoming webinars and today. The first, which was on the 20th of November, is recorded, and if you didn't attend it, so you have a chance to get the recording of it and the materials. So you can just write your message in the chat, or just there will be details on the next slide. And we have actually 2 options. We have 2 options of participation. First of all, is absolutely free of charge. So you can attend.
If you look at the...
Sorry? Okay. So you can attend every webinar free of charge, and you'll get electronic certificate from ONARA company. Then you'll get webinar presentations and the recording. It's available on Google Disk. You'll have the link to the Google Disk where we have all these folders and files. And if you attend at least 5 webinars, you'll get Moscow International Academy Certificate of Participation. So it's a free of charge option. If you are interested in getting more than that, if you are interested in getting state recognized certificate on teacher training, it's 72 hours certificate. And apart from getting this free of charge materials, you will have access to the Moscow International Academy learning platform, and you're supposed to do 1 task after each webinar. So actually, we don't limit the dates by which you are supposed to provide these completed tasks, but the main thing that we will have completed this enrollment by March. So if you are interested in getting state recognized certificate and interested in doing some related activities on the platform, which will be checked, you need to apply by March. Okay, you have an option to apply by March. So the course, as you see, 5,000 rubles. And as well as doing the task, at the end of the program, you'll be granted this state recognized certificate, удостоверение о повышении квалификации, state recognized certificate from the Moscow International Academy. So that was just a brief introduction. I see some comments. Some people have some technical problems. Elena, if you don't feel comfortable, if it's not convenient to have a camera on, just keep it off, due maybe to internet connection. Okay, Natalia?
Yeah, maybe it's just a couple of words to add, right?
Yeah.
So our usual format of these meetings is like 3 speakers, one after another for 30 minutes each, right? And today, so the first speaker will be Evgeny Usachov, then myself, and then a representative of Dell Publishing and the author of a lot of books for teachers, so resources for teachers, Jason Anderson. So, and more than that, today, so you will have a nice opportunity to visit a separate virtual expo room, but you will be taught about this opportunity a little bit later, all right? And maybe one more thing I would like to ask you, be as active as possible, all right? So if we ask questions, please do not hesitate to answer. Share your experience, share your ideas. This is the most important part of all these events, all right? Thank you.
Right.
Okay, thank you, Natalia. Again, dear colleagues, I'm asking you kindly just to have your mics off, because sometimes extra sounds interfere in our live session. So you may be really active in the chat, or maybe after a speaker's presentation, you may ask questions. But now within the presentation, please keep your mics off. Okay.
Evgeny, if you make me a co-host, I will look for all the mics are off, right?
Okay, I'll just make this available. Just a second. Just
all right. So if you have any questions for now about the format of the webinar, so please put them in the chat box, all right? And then so we will answer them.
Okay, I suppose it's time to start. And as it was said earlier, our today's webinar is dedicated to the issue of effective communication. And I'm going to be the first speaker. I'll be speaking about developing effective communication skills online. Of course, I believe we all badly need this communication and communication online, and it has its peculiarities. And my colleagues will be covering slightly different issues, but all related to developing communication skills. Okay, I'd like to start with a nice quotation, which reflects the nature of communication, which says that effective communication requires more than an exchange of information. When done right, communication fosters understanding, strengthens relationships, improves teamwork, and builds trust. So what do we do within our lessons, classes, with our students? We are building these communication skills, building up these communication skills, which will help them in their future life. And within the classes, we build up these skills or maybe sub skills. For instance, for young learners, it's just these are just first steps in this development. But if we speak about teens and maybe young adults and adults, this issue becomes more and more important because it is directly related to their future career path and effective communication within a team. So if you look at this graph, we see some interesting statistics that top 10 most in demand soft skills, which are usually required by employers. You see communication number one in this list. Yeah, it's about 58% sort of requirement which employers expect in their employees and applicants for different positions. So as you see, communication may be referred to a kind of soft skill, which we're aiming to develop in our schools and universities. If we just raise the issue of what communication is, you can see that communication covers a wide area. Just a second. Please have your mics off, please. Okay, so communication covers quite wide area of different, I would say, message exchanges. So it's first of all, it's oral communication through talks. It may be discussion. It may be exchange of messages in terms of texting and message exchange in different media and social media, Of course, it's face-to-face communication, which is not so common these days when we teach our students. Regarding the regions where there are some limitations and sort of lockdown. And of course, communication involves writing and reading skills and listening as well. My question to you, what do you understand by communication skills? What are communication skills for you? Would you just type in the chat what's your idea of that? How do you understand communication skills, and what do you think this concept involves? Okay, just type in your ideas. Any ideas, colleagues? Mm-hmm. Okay, ability to understand and to be understood, giving and receiving feedback. Let's see, be able to get your idea across, exchanging ideas, yeah. Sharing ideas, emotions. Good. Collaboration, making it easier to understand the other speaker, staying in touch. Okay, great, great. Confidence and clarity, exactly. Thank you very much, dear colleagues. Okay, okay. Let's have a look at some, you have, on the slide, you have different types of communication skills. Okay, we can split them in different types. So mostly when we mean communication skills, we mean, first of all, presentation skills. So being able to make a presentation or present your idea. Negotiation skills, especially it's vital if we speak about young adults and adults, because it's very important, I would say, employability skill, right? Being able to negotiate the conditions, maybe of the future work, of the contract. Influencing skills as well. So, you know, when we communicate in some situations, we have to, or we're expected to make an influence, right? Maybe as a teacher. As teachers, we influence our students, we inspire them. Of course, communication skills involve cross-cultural communication and being aware of these important aspects in terms of cross-cultural context, not only accuracy and fluency in speaking, but understanding this context, right? Again, if we mean adults, selling skills, teamwork, building skills, and win-win conversations are also part of communication skills. But mostly, if we speak about young learners and teenagers, of course, we develop their the aspects as fluency, accuracy, and making them able to deliver their idea, yeah, to exchange information. In this regard, we see some features of...
Я бы тебе очень советовала взять первую картинку.
Can you have your mics off, please? Okay. So, and what is important here? It's important clarity of message. And again, if we teach them to make their message clear and understandable, it will help them to communicate effectively. Checking understanding, very important feature. So it's not just a one-way process in communication. We provide information and we ask questions, we get feedback and give feedback. It's very important to understand what the other person is saying. Turn-taking, a very important sub-skill, I would say, especially if we speak about, if we mean so-called fluent speaking, right? Natural speaking, in which students take turns in delivering their messages and expressing their ideas. As well, communication skills involve active listening. And in this regard, developing listening skills at the lesson will just contribute to developing their communication skills. Choosing the right method, it means method of communication. Again, it's just either verbal or maybe written communication. Self-awareness, understanding good and bad points in terms of this ability to communicate, and at times appropriate body language, which also matters. And my next question to you, what is effective communication? If we understand what communication is, so what features of effective communication? I mentioned some of them on the previous slide, but can you add anything to this list? What is effective communication, and what sort of communication do we find effective? Please put your ideas in the chat. Okay, nice message. Both parties are satisfied with the outcomes. Exactly. To be understood. Okay. The feedback. Reaching aims. Communication is fulfilled. That's great. Dear colleagues, just a second. I'll just stop the presentation and one moment. Okay, let's move on. And if we look at the features of effective communication, you can see it on the slide. So first of all, effective communication involves solving problems quickly. Again, making decisions based on the information we have. It helps to provide a better control. And maybe it helps to advance professional image. If we speak about business-related effective communication. Of course, the main idea is not to have a situation like this, when the communication, I suppose, is broken down by misunderstanding. Both parties misunderstand what it is involved in. Even if we have so-called written communication, it may be spoiled by the maybe wrong way of communicating. If we speak about online communication, it has some additional features which matter compared with face-to-face. First of all, look, in online communication, eye contact really matters. For instance, if we have our students, our learners, having the cameras on, it doubles participation of their retention, right? Retention rate. Okay, so I suppose you face many times when there is no eye contact or students don't have their cameras on. It's much harder to provide effective communication. On the other hand, it's not only the issue of retention, it's also an issue of building relationships of trust. So first of all, when we speak to people, we can see them and we can see their emotions and their faces. So we are more, I would say, trusty in this regard. So with young learners and kids, of course, the first priority is just this retention, because it's not so easy to retain attention, because in online format, students have a lot of distractors, or they may be doing anything else while having a lesson. So that's why it's really vital to have their cameras on. And there may be different solutions here. So in my case, I mostly, in most cases, I teach teenagers and adults. So we have, at the very start of the course, we have a sort of agreement, right? When we have all our cameras on and so on. But also, I understand that it's not always possible for different reasons, for technical reason or for some other reasons, for instance, bad connection reason. But still, it makes communication more effective. It's first important point to make. Secondly, vocal variety. Yeah, you can see that your voice is the primary vehicle through which we just deliver our message or carry our message. In this regard, I suppose most of you use your voice just to attract attention, to give instructions, and to communicate with students more effectively. But we have to keep in mind that, yes, vocal variety matters. And the third important issue is speaking from the heart, as they say. So people just feel if we care about them, if we are interested in them, if we just support our learners, kids and teens, especially in this, I would say, not easy conditions, right? Because they have to communicate online. And it's just sharing a meaningful experience that can connect them to our story in the lesson. Speaking about first point, eye contact, you can see this interesting slide. So before we make eye contact and before communication, we have to, yes, just set up and maintain this eye contact. And in this regard, it's very important. First of all, it's hard to face the camera all the time, to look at the camera all the time. And it's a kind of skill, and especially students and learners find it sort of embarrassing, yeah? Because in a traditional class, I wouldn't say that they had so much eye contact on a regular basis, yeah? But here, they are at their screens and they have to face the teacher, to face other students in the group, and sometimes they find it really difficult, really hard. So there are some tips you can see how to actually avoid this embarrassment, I would say. So psychologists recommend not looking down when you look away, yeah? And if you do look away, you can find another spot on somebody's face or next to your screen, and you focus your attention on this particular spot, and you just then you just turn from one spot to another, yeah? I suppose you also faced experience that when teenagers especially, and maybe young learners, if we speak about students, they are rather reluctant to have this constant eye contact. In this regard, we have to, first of all, to understand the value of that, and then if they do look away, it's very important for them to understand they need to keep this contact with people, at least from not constantly or gazing at them, but from time to time look away, but still be in contact. Yeah, so this psychological things, I would say. Second thing is a vocal variety. In terms of vocal variety, we mean changes in the speaker's rate, pitch, volume, that give the voice variety and expressiveness. And we have to teach them that as well, that if they want to emphasize some points, to draw attention to some points, they have to change, for instance, their pitch, maybe the pace by which they're speaking, and some other aspects of vocal variety. Actually, vocal variety usually refers to 4 points. It's pace, pitch, power or volume, and pause. Using pauses also important, yeah? As they say, it slows down the pace. There may be a quite easy exercise you can recommend your students to do. For instance, they select a topic that facilitates the use of vocal variety, maybe the topic they are eager to speak, or the topic which is easier for them to speak. And using these features as volume, pitch, rate, and quality, they can express their emotion, meaning, interest in their message. Of course, they should be aware that using pauses enhance their messages, okay? And while doing this exercise, they can use their vocal variety in terms of it should be smoothly, naturally, because it's also needs some training, yeah? So this exercise may take up to 7 minutes maybe, and when they deliver their message on a particular topic, you ask them just to speak faster, for instance, or with different pitch or emotions and so on. It adds so-called heart in their speaking. What else is important when we speak about online communication? So, as you see, online communication can present barriers to detecting some nuances, facial expressions, gesture, tone, or body language. For instance, currently I'm observing some lessons of my colleagues in Moscow International Language School. And when I observe a lesson, I sometimes take notes that when there is no so-called rapport between the teacher and students, I just see students, for instance, at times they are bored, they are not engaged, they are not involved. And it's visible when they have their cameras on. And of course, it's important for a teacher to pay attention to these issues and to understand if something goes wrong in this way. Okay, this is the first point here. The second is, of course, if we aim to have a really effective communication, I suppose it's a good investment in HD web camera and good pair of over-ear headphones and so-called studio quality USB microphone, which also helps to enhance communication. Not all maybe of these mentioned things, but initially a webcam or a good set of headphones can make magic. And of course, this improved equipment usually helps facilitate a more immersive and rewarding experience for all students involved. What areas in this regard should be improved? First of all, it's just listening skills. Yeah, we have to teach our students to learn to listen. Okay, it's not just paying attention to what is being spoken, but the way how something is being spoken and how these messages are delivered, right? So you can see maybe somebody's mood or emotion, and we pay attention to that. How much interest a speaker has or a learner when they speak have in what they are saying. Second area is studying and understanding nonverbal communication. So you see that 80% of communication is nonverbal. That's why we have to pay attention and draw attention to body language, facial expressions, gesticulation, and something like that. Third area is emotional awareness and management. Yeah, understanding somebody's emotions, and we call it so-called emotional intelligence, and we develop it in our students. And questioning skills. So questioning is a crucial skill. That's why we have to develop. It helps students to ensure they have understood someone's message correctly. Okay, so if we sum up what ways to improve communication skills may involve, you see just 3 blocks, I would say. Active listening, focus on nonverbal communication, manage your own emotions, ask for feedback, practice public speaking. Asking for feedback, practicing public speaking, and developing a filter, right? As for some practical, I understand that my time is coming to the end. Just a few practical activities. The first is called, it's just developing the skills. You ask your students to record a video of them doing a role play in their native language. I believe it's relevant to beginners or elementary students. And then we get them to record themselves doing the same role in English. And after that, they watch their 2 role plays back and compare the use of eye contact, body language, and fluency. And it gives students the opportunity to use the skills and confidence they have in their first language to improve their speaking in English. Yeah. For beginner level, I would say. Yeah. The second activity called adapting role plays. For instance, next time you do a role play with your class, with your students, instead of grouping students into just pairs, you add an observer to each pair. And then, while 2 students are performing their role play, the third student can make notes on communication strategies, like tone of voice, body language, and formal or informal language used. And at the end of that, the observer can share what they have noticed with the group. And this activity encourages students to gain a deeper awareness of the appropriate language and gestures to use in different situations.
Да, Ольга Николаевна.
Mhm.
Алло.
Okay.
Да. Да, да, да,
Sorry,
да.
can you have your mic off, please?
Да, возле компьютера. Нет, я возле компьютера.
Just a second. Sorry. Let's go on. So scaling, in the second activity I'd like to share before I finish, asking students to prepare presentations, called scaling up the audience. You ask your students to prepare a presentation for a particular topic for homework. And first of all, you get them present their work in pairs. Yeah, this could be just the form of informal chat rather than formal presentation. Then next step, you ask them to present again, but this time in groups. And it's getting more and more formal or slightly formal. And it gives the chance to stand by taking questions at the end. And then finally, we give them the chance to give their presentation to the whole class. And doing that twice, or having done this twice, students have had the chance to practice and prepare, and they are more likely to feel much more comfortable in speaking in public. Okay. As for developing communication skills, it's also quite vital. For instance, as an activity to have to give students opportunity to record a very short weekly vlog on a particular topic, and then it could be sharing a recipe for their favorite food, demonstrating a skills or hobby, or even introducing their family pets. Again, it's a step to get confidence in online communication, and it helps a lot students to record, having this, or re-record if necessary, and maybe looking at their recordings and understanding what's going wrong, especially if the teacher gives the proper feedback. Okay, colleagues, summing up, I would like to say that communication skills online and building them have their peculiarities. And we need to find ways how to make this process easier for students, yes, how to involve them, and some tips which we give them that make communication more effective. If you have, you will have a list of some useful links. I'll share it with you in the presentation, and you'll get this presentation. If you have any questions, I would be more happy to answer, but in order not to take the other speakers' time, you may put the questions in the chat, and I'll answer the questions in the chat. So here are my contacts. If you have some additional questions about this issue, don't hesitate to contact me. And that's it. I'm ready to give the floor to our next speaker, Natalia Kolina.
Thank you very much, Evgeny. Quite useful bits and pieces, right? So on how to communicate effectively. All right, thank you very much. So can I share my screen now?
Yes, just a sec.
Yeah, so just one of the ways and one of the tips for effective communication is eye contact. Thank you very much for switching on your cameras so I can see your faces, and they are quite supportive. Thank you very, very much.
Very close now.
All right, thank you. So I'm sharing my screen now. Please tell me if you can see it. All right.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Then I will start. Okay. So my subtopic for today's presentation is the importance of presenting and supporting arguments, right? But before I start, I would like to emphasize such an idea that our students make a lot of communication these days. But mostly, so what do? So they send SMS messages, text messages, they use all kinds of social media. What I mean here is definitely there is some lack of oral communication, okay? And whatever the language our students are talking in, so they should know how to express themselves clearly, right? So in everyday life, they talk to their friends, to their parents, to their teachers. And sometimes, and of course, our students are smart, they are intelligent, and they know the subject matter they are talking about. But quite often they are not, I would say, persuasive enough, right? In secondary school, at the university, I would say it's common practice to make presentations, to write essays, to do some research, and submit papers right afterwards. So that's why during my today's presentation, I decided to contemplate on this, about the importance of presenting and supporting arguments. And I ask you to be here with me, to participate actively and to write all your ideas in the chat box, all right? Okay, let's move on. All right. So of course, when we speak about effective communication, it is worth mentioning 21st century skills, right? And here I'm talking about learning skills. They are also known as 4 C's. And now, this is my first interactive question to you. So can you share what are these 21st century skills? There are 4 of them, 4 C's. What are they? Please write in the chat. 21st century skills, learning skills mainly. 4 C's, right? You may type them one by one.
Communication.
All right, critical thinking. So please turn off your mics for the sake of better communication. Right, thank you. Critical thinking, what else? Being able to find and analyze information, being tech savvy, all right, Galina, thank you very much. Collaboration, ability to learn, first of all. Okay, thank you. So here are my ideas. So critical thinking, as you've already mentioned. And what I meant here is the analysis of facts to form a judgment, all right? Then comes creativity. Yeah, creativity, like Yulia Germanovna so says. And this is the ability to produce or use original and unusual ideas. Collaboration. And this is the process of two more people working together, and they have to complete a task or they have to achieve a definite goal. And of course, communication. And to my mind, communication is just the cornerstone. This is the main, I would say, the major skill of all of these 21st century skills, all right? Sometimes, it is worth mentioning the fifth 21st century skill, but we are mostly be focusing on these four. All right, so what I want you to do now is to look at the screen carefully and read this quotation. Okay, I will give you just a few seconds to read it carefully. We speak about effective communication, right? And sometimes what we mean by saying something is not the same as people understand, let's say at the other end, right? Okay, so the author is unknown, but I think so this is a very, very concise quotation. So it illustrates the importance of effective communication, to my mind. All right, so you already discussed a few communication skills with Evgeny. But here, so of course, so there is not a definite list of this communication skill. There are a lot of, depending on the situation, depending on the age, depending on the purpose of communication, right? So I would like to share just my ideas, my vision of what communication skills are. So first of all, this is when we absorb, share, and understand information presented. And I guess this is something that have been already mentioned in the chat, right? So another communication skill is communicating in a way that others grasp. So a few more, like respecting others' point of view through engagement and interest. And again, so quite a lot of them were mentioned by Evgeny. So using relevant knowledge, using skills to explain and clarify thoughts and ideas, listening to others when they communicate, asking questions to better understand, right? So I think this is a very important communication skill when you have to, especially when I'm talking about my topic, you remember, is presenting and supporting the argument. And when you listen to what others say, so you may be quite flexible in what you're going to say next, right? That's why listening to others, so understanding that they hear what you're talking about. And then, so you may ask some relevant questions to make the communication better, to make it even more effective. All right. So my question now is, how can we help our learners to communicate effectively? What we teachers can do to help them to become more confident speakers? Please share your ideas. What can be done in the classroom to help our students to become confident speakers? What do we usually do in the classroom? So no matter if it is online or offline. All right, please share your ideas. Give them written support, okay? So give them more opportunities to practice it, all right? So, and how do they practice? What do they do so to become confident speakers? I'm kind of leading you to the next slide, right? So teach formulas of politeness, of course, yeah. So a lot of good advice that Evgenia has just given to you, right? Okay, so I will reveal my next slide. And this is, of course, some speaking activities, right? This is my example, discussion. So this is a very nice speaking activity when we make our students discuss the topic that they are interested in. Again, share your ideas. What are your favorite speaking activities? I'm sure there are quite a lot of them. Please share your favorite speaking activities. What do you do so to make your students speak? Find someone who, all right? What else? We can and should support students' efforts. Don't criticize them, of course. Songs for kids. So this is a perfect activity. Debates, problem questions. Okay. Something else? Please share. You're all very, very experienced. Okay. Video, right? We can watch and then discuss roundtable discussions, right? Okay. So I will show you some more examples of speaking activities which you might want to use, or I'm sure you have already been using in your classrooms. Agree or disagree, all right? Role plays, and it is mentioning in the chat box. Jigsaw activities of different types, by the way. Board games, which is a very nice activity. Card games, and debates. Yeah, so of course there are a lot more. Taking into account that today we mostly teach online, fortunately or unfortunately, I'm going to choose some of the speaking activities for further discussion. So let's move on. Again, when we choose this or that speaking activity, because we want our students to speak, right? What we as teachers, when we plan our lesson, when we think what kind of speaking activities we are going to use, this is a question, I guess, which is worth asking, right? Ask yourself first, what makes a speaking activity communicative? Because we are talking about effective communication. And we don't have to teach our students how to speak, but how to speak effectively, how to communicate effectively. Extra activities from ebooks, interaction, feedback, real situations, appeal to experience. Thank you very much. Fun and interesting lesson, of course. All right, so dear colleagues, so your ideas are wonderful. Thanks a lot. So my idea here is what I want to suggest. So to make a speaking activity communicative, I would like to, or I would actually try out a kind of, let's say a matrix. Okay, so try out a matrix, maybe just a couple of things. So to check if your choice of activity is correct. If the activity that you're going to use in your classroom will serve effective communication. And what are these things? So first of all, this is maybe not the first of all, but one of the points is filling out the information gap, all right? So they need to exchange some information. And in this way, so there is communication. They not only speak, but they communicate. They so fill the gaps, right? So let's call this the information gap. And so they exchange some information with each other. And this exchange, of course, should be meaningful. It doesn't mean that so everything you do in the classroom, of course, has some meaning. And I would say we try to make our exercises meaningful. I will give you a very small example. For example, if you have even grammar exercise, yeah, so just fill the gaps, so put the verbs into the correct form. How can we make this exercise meaningful? We may ask our students, we may help our students to personalize this exercise, right? And when they are talking about themselves, when everything that they are saying using the sentences from the exercise have some meaning for themselves, first of all. In this case, we may talk about the meaningful exchange. Again, so when choosing the speaking activity, think how you can make this speaking activity communicative. I will show you later on a couple of examples how you may do this. And I'm sure you know this already, but still, so practice makes perfect. All right. This is another very nice quotation I would like you to show, because the focus of my today's presentation is presenting arguments and supporting them. To my mind, and so it was already mentioned in the chat box, so debates, all kinds of discussions, presentations, right? So they can help our students become better speakers. And what is more important, it is both in private and in public. Okay, so when debating, so when teach our students debate, we show them how to be persuasive, how to listen carefully to opponents, and how to present the ideas very, very clearly. Okay. So another reason why I chose debates, so for my talk, is that this is a very popular activity actually. This is usually used as a follow-up activity after listening exercises, after reading exercises. Yes, but it can also be used as a standalone activity. Let's move on. All right. So debates, and here when we talk about debates, so we teach our students to do what? So we give them some meaningful practice in all the 4 skills. So to be ready for any kind of debates, discussions, they have to know how to listen, to speak, to write, and to read. So they need all these 4 skills to be engaged, to be involved in this process. And also this helped develop argumentation skills for persuasive speech and persuasive writing, because our secondary school students, right? So they learn how to write essays, and then they continue to write essays in the universities. And this is, I mean, debates when they present arguments and counter arguments, and when they support their arguments. This is kind of also true about the written task, like essays. Okay, so that's why when we teach them to communicate effectively in oral speech, it means that they know how to be very, very persuasive in written tasks as well. All right. When our students present arguments or counter arguments, so what do they have to do? So they have to state the idea, then they should know how to develop an idea, and of course to use some cohesive devices, because this should be like a very clear, very concise, let's say, speech or their presentation, right? And how can they support their arguments? what types of activities you can use. This is not an activities as in itself, but what helps them to support their arguments. I would say these activities which help them support arguments. For example, justifying. This is as simple as to answer, for example, why question. So they learn how to justify their ideas, or they may present some statistics, some data to justify their examples, their ideas. Okay, so giving examples, contrasting, giving an expert opinion. This is, let's say, giving an expert opinion, or so in other words, citing authority. When our students learn how to use expert sources that can make their argument even stronger, right? So you may teach them how to use analogy, for example. And in this technique, so students are supposed to choose, for example, two objects or two ideas, and they have to find some observable, proven similarities, right? So and so by means of these similarities, they will show that a similar action should also occur in both situations, or is true for both objects, for both ideas, right? A well-rounded speaker, or a confident speaker. So our main idea is so to have our to make our students confident both in oral communication and written communication, as I've already mentioned. Okay, so and again, it doesn't matter whether a student is talking before the class, like in the first picture, whether it is a dialogue, whether it is a kind of discussion, a round table, right? Or whether the student is expressing their ideas in written form. So we would like to have a well-rounded speaker, okay? So to make, so to know how to express their ideas very, very clearly. All right, so in a nutshell, a confident speaker, both inside and outside the classroom, can communicate effectively both accuracy-wise and fluency-wise. And this is what Evgeny has already mentioned. Accuracy and fluency are kind of crucial. So what I meant here, when we teach accuracy, of course, first of all, we teach how to, and when we teach how to present and support argument, we provide students with necessary vocabulary and grammar. When we speak about grammar, our students present their argument, right? So this is, let's say, the definite grammar structures, which should be used while presenting ideas and opinions. So these are my two ideas. So present tenses for general facts and past tenses for single actions. What other grammar structures could be used here? I mean, here, when we teach our students to express their opinion, so to give their arguments or counter arguments and support them. What other grammar structures they need? So please share. So to make their presentation clear, to make their argument concise, right? And their argumentation persuasive. What kind of grammar is necessary here? Present tenses, of course, past tenses, something else. All right, so let's crack on, as I don't want the next speaker to wait for me. Modal verbs, thank you very much. Okay, let's see. So I opt for be going to and present continuous for indicating plans, modal verbs, thank you very much, and maybe second conditionals, right, for hypothetical statements. So if they so need to compare or contrast something. All right, in terms of vocabulary. So as I'm mostly focusing today on debates, and debates, I think, help our students present and support their arguments. Here I'm going to show you the example from 21st century communication, listening, speaking, and critical thinking. This is National Geographic Learning textbook. And here are some bits and pieces for making a good presentation for our students, right? So this is taken from the book, but of course you may have your own list of what is necessary for them. So the language, the bulk of the language is appropriate for debates, for presentations. This shows how to make a presentation and how to work on structure, right? How to work on cohesive devices, what might be used here, you may see. So I'm not going to enumerate them. So how to make your presentation, or so your presentation, I mean, so your argumentation, logic, right? Of course, don't forget about vocabulary, right? So I mean, you, I'm sorry, different adjectives, different verbs, nouns, which are necessary so to make a presentation vivid and persuasive and clear and interesting and engaging. But of course, when you teach all this, do not forget about register as well. There are so many things for the teacher to cover, but still, so we have to know and have to help our students with that. When we speak about fluency, all right, so I will show you my points here. In academic or even, let's say, professional setting, fluency is one of the skills to focus on when we speak about presentation or debate. And the way students explain their topic or prove their point should be smooth, clear, concise, without too many pauses and hesitations. These are sub skills that Evgeny has already mentioned, right? And all these are as important as the content of the presentation. So to make your presentation clear is very, very important. But to be a confident speaker in terms of no hesitation, no pauses, when it is easy and pleasant to listen to, when you are this kind of communicator, yes, the interlocutor, this is even sometimes more important. So our next speaker is Jason Anderson, and this is actually the example from his book, Activities for Cooperative Learning by Delta Publishing. I'm sorry for bad image, so bad quality image. But so the idea here is when you use the debate like a standalone activity, all right? So you may choose different types, different exercises from different resources, right? And you see, so this is levels like B2, C1, but age is 13 plus. The whole book is aimed at the audience, which is 11 plus, and levels are from A2 to C1. So it will take you from 30 to 40 minutes. So it has a lot of preparation. I mean, so a lot of tips on how to prepare, how to proceed with your debates, how to organize these days, and some extra activities to make everything interesting and engaging for your students. Another example is taken from, again, 21st century communication, speaking and listening, right? And this is, now you can see the exercise which asks the student to work with the partner and discuss the questions. So my first idea is when you use any kinds of exercises, right? You may, let's say, kind of make them even more interesting and more engaging. they can answer questions, and this is interesting because this is some kind of exchange of information, right? The information gap. Just by simply adding one question, like I would say a magic question. So you may make your students to think critically, and the magic question is why. So they not only answer this question, but they also answer this extra question, why? So, and in this case, they make their, you make this exercise for the purpose of making your students think critically, all right? So a teacher's book, and this is so the part from the teacher's book, also suggests an exercise with how to help your students reason effectively. Look, so you may ask your student to make a kind of a chart for the topic, and then so they have to choose a side and then debate as a class. What I also like about so these types of activities, I mean debates, is that now you can use your breakout rooms even if you teach online. Just 2 rooms, 2 teams, pros and cons, and then so you may put them all together or just put them in pairs. So you are a teacher, you decide what to do, and so you can use so this type of activity when you teach online also, not only offline. So this is my last question for you. What age to start teaching reasoning or to support your argument? When is it is an appropriate age to start? Just this is my last question for you. So please be active and put your ideas into the chat. Let us not make Jason wait for too long. All right, 10 years old. Okay, thank you, Oksana. So at what age can students say why? 6, 7, any age. All right, actually, so it's very, very good. Thank you for your answers, because here I will show you 2 exercises from a very nice books for very, very young learners. And you see, so at the bottom of the page, you see the logical reasoning and problem solving task, or logical reasoning and problem solving task when you have when they have to kind of fill out the chart as well. So and this book is aimed at children of pre-primary, yeah, so when they go to the kindergarten, and so for primary school age. So it means that we can start teaching them how to be persuasive, how to prove that they're right, how to support their argument from the very, very early age. All right, so if you have any questions, so please put them in the chat. Thank you very much for your active participation, all right? And I'm going to so give the floor to Evgeny first, right?
Okay. Thank you very much, Natalia. Really, really nice talk. Yeah, lots of food for thought, I would say, and some practical.
Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah, and I can see Jason Anderson is here waiting.
Oh, hello, Jason. Okay, I think Jason, it's your time now. Oh, okay, it's Michelle.
Yeah. That's time for Michelle. Yeah.
Just really quickly, just to say thank you for inviting Delta here today, and we're really, really happy to be sponsoring our next speaker, Jason Anderson, who has written several books for Delta, and will be able to answer some questions. But if you have any questions after his talk, feel free to visit me on the virtual stand. I think my colleagues are going to post the link in the chat. You could have a look at the Jason's books and other Delta titles. And if you have any questions or you want to ask me about any of your English language teaching needs, you will find a Zoom link there, and I will be in this Zoom room for an hour. So you can come and visit me after this event and have a chat. I'd love to see you. Okay, over to Jason. Okay.
Thank you very much, Michelle. And thank you, Natalia, as well, for your interesting talk. I was watching the end of that. It was really interesting. Now, just to check, can you hear me okay?
Yes, yes,
you can, Natalia, great. I'm going to do quite an interactive talk. Just to check, how much time do I have? Do I have till 1:30 or do I have 30 minutes?
30 minutes, Jason.
30 minutes, so about 1:40. I'll try and finish before then. To be honest, we can go for as long as or as little as as is required. So I'm going to share my screen now. Oh no, hang on, I've not. Can somebody enable me to share screen, please?
Yes, just a second, Evgeny will make you a
No,
host.
Natalia, you are the host now. You can.
Still me. Yeah, sorry. I'm sorry.
Thank you very much. While we are waiting, I want to ask people, which city are you in? And what's the weather like today? You can see
I'm sorry,
it's still light
Evgeny,
here in London.
you are the host. Yeah, I make you a host. I'm sorry, Jason.
Omsk. It's okay. Yulia is in Omsk. Yulia Mai. Если вы хотите на русском написать, это возможно. Я читаю русский язык, понимаю. Moscow, sometimes it's easier if you have Kyrillica on your computer. Barnaul. I've been to Barnaul. I went to the Altai Mountains in 1992. Moscow, too cold, too cold. What temperature are we talking about in Moscow? Oh, we got some Russian there. Достаточно холодно. Minus 35, no way. Where is that, Maria? Oh my God.
Jason, you've got your share screen opportunity.
Great, thank you so much. Sorry, I'm so busy reading. So the title of the talk is, hang on, let me just concentrate, otherwise I'll get the wrong slide. Share screen. Right, can you see that now? Can somebody give me a confirmation? Great.
See it.
I want to get the chat back up. Okay, there we go. So I've got the chat. I should be able to see everything now, hopefully. Brilliant, great. Yeah, so the talk that I was asked to talk about today, challenges and solutions, effective communication in the classroom. And Natalia and I discussed this quite a bit beforehand, because although I speak Russian, I lived in Ukraine for several years. It was at the start of my career back in the 1990s. I even taught in some Ukrainian schools, but obviously Russia and Ukraine are different countries. And I really have no understanding of what's happening in Russian schools and classrooms. So what we'll do is we'll begin with a bit of context and a little bit of research. This talk is going to be as much about research as it is about kind of solutions, especially because of the lack of time we've got. So let's begin with that first question. I hope you've got your keyboards ready, because this will be a very interactive talk. So I need to know a little bit more about you. It's nice to know your cities, but also could you tell me, just type one of the letters. Do you teach primary, secondary, tertiary, or adults? Yulia teaches adults. That was fast, Yulia. Is anyone else going to reply? Do you think? Oh, Galina, adults. I was told I'd get a kind of a combination of secondary and tertiary. Elena, all of them. Oh, wow, that's great. Primary, secondary, primary, adults, primary teens, secondary teens, adults. That's great. Oh, some of them, all of them. Tatiana, how do you teach all of them? Okay, and Nadezhda, mainly primary. Cool, great. For some reason, I had in mind secondary, but secondary and tertiary, there's kind of a lot of overlap there as well. And it seems like we've got a challenging variety, but that's the first thing. Now, question number 2, how many learners do you have in your classrooms? Type in the typical number of learners. Just give us a rough guess. Okay, so we got some small classes there, some medium size, a bit larger there from Tatiana, up to 25. Interesting. Now, tell me about their level of English. Just use one of the CFR abbreviations if you can. This is also important for understanding what we're talking about. From 0 to hero, mainly beginners, A1, B2, A1, C1, B1, B2, C. Okay, great. Intermediate and upper intermediate. Interesting variety, okay. And now these are the 2 important questions. Are you currently teaching online, or are you in the classroom? So Y for if you're teaching online, N means, I'm not sure what that means actually, I haven't thought this through. N, does it mean you have to, anyway, just say if you're not. Blended, yes, online. That's probably a better idea, just type the word. Great. Online only arena, yeah, great. Thank you. The massive challenges of teaching online. And then here is the $6 million question. When do you hope to get back in the classroom? Be honest, I want a qualitative answer here, a bit more. Next slide. Nobody knows, yeah. As soon as possible, we shall hope. Budem надеяться, да. Next autumn, my God, hard to tell. Yeah, here in the UK, we've got schools are running, but they're opening and closing. Classes are opening and closing because we're getting breakouts. I think like they're in Russia, we've just approved our first vaccine and we're hoping to get the, the most vulnerable generation. Oh my God, Olga, they like learning online. I hate it, to be honest. We're hoping to get the most vulnerable people vaccinated and to get back to normal, hopefully by spring, but I think it's a bit optimistic. I hear that the vaccine is being distributed in Russia, so we'll hope that you can as well. Because one of the things that I've been honest about all the time is I'm not an expert on teaching online. Nobody is. We've all got about the same amount of experience. And myself, I haven't been doing much teaching over the last year anyway, so I'm definitely less experienced than many of the people here, which is why I'm going to be relying on your input and ideas. But just to reflect on a very, very simple, obvious point, what we've just done is we've had a kind of a simple discussion. I've got a very large class here of how many people are there at the moment? 82. Oops. Have I just unshared my screen? Sorry. Oops. Just make that to full screen. Sorry, I'm having some technological issues here. Oops. There we go. That's what I wanted to share. Great. Okay. Yes, so there we go. We've been through some of those questions, and just a very simple point that the chat box is probably the most viable space where we can often engage in interaction with our learners in the classroom, especially if we've got a large group. There's 81 people here, and it is possible to do some interaction through that. I've been working recently with teachers in India, and you can imagine some of the challenges that they faced with teaching online when they have large classes and children who often don't have access of any type. And I'm sure there are challenges shared. Given that we have the same problem in the UK, I'm sure it will be similar in Russia as well. Okay, so the rough aims of the workshop, and this is very much emerging aims. I do not intend to meet these aims. I intend to present them and to see what happens. So to explore some of the challenges that we face in Russia, and when I say we, because we, the majority of us are in Russia, that's what I mean. Obviously, I'm not, I'm in the UK. When trying to get learners to speak English in the classroom. Which classroom it is, well, we've got a massive variety and that'll be a challenge, but I will focus on secondary and tertiary because in my experience, adult classrooms in private schools are much, much, much easier places to do this. To discuss possible solutions to these challenges, mainly face-to-face, but we'll also discuss online, and to share some resources to conduct simple classroom research to help us understand more about our challenges and the efficacy of certain solutions. So what I'd like to do now is I'd like to present a few challenges and I'd like to ask you about them. I'm going to do this using a different piece of technology, but somewhat annoyingly, the technology I'm using at the moment is, there we go, 1 second. Just want to get the chat box back. 1 second. I've got a bit of a technical problem here that I can't actually see the chat at the moment, and it's not coming back. Sorry about this. There it is. Okay. I'm going to have to stop sharing the screen there. 1 second. Every time I share screen, I lose sight of the chat, so I'm going to have to. Sorry about this. Technical problem. I'll put it into pop out. Great. Okay. Right. I'll just share that screen again, if I may. All right, give me a second.
Jason, when you share your screen, and so if you look at the top of your page,
Yeah.
and when there are some settings, allow your screen to be visible 100%, and then
Great,
you will
great.
see the chat box. So try
Yes.
this. This
Well,
is
then, thank you.
during sharing your screen.
That's great. It's actually there's a couple of problems with my computer as well with it. It's not, for some reason, it's not giving me the option to share the thing that I was just sharing. Sorry about this. What I'll do is I'll share. I've got the option to share the window itself for the slides, and I'll just share them now. Oh, it's annoying. Sorry, it's not showing me my PowerPoint in the share screen box. Right. I'll just try again if I may. No, it's not. It's really weird. It's not allowing me. Okay. What I'll do is I'll share.
Jason, is it possible to send your presentation to Natalia?
It isn't now, because I'm going to be switching between screens. So it's I've never experienced this before. I've got it on PowerPoint, and it doesn't seem to want to. And my computer is now. Yeah, what I'll do, I'll just share this. It will be fine. Okay, can you see that? Okay, those are my slides without it on full screen.
Yeah, we can see it.
Yeah, we can.
That's great. So I've put down here some challenges that people often discuss when they are talking about the difficult, and it's really weird. I've lost the whole Zoom thing as well. What was it you said, Natalia, about 100%?
Yes. So settings, and then so you can see 100% for sharing, I guess.
Yeah, no, it's not. I'm not seeing. Oh, it's very nice.
So this is at the top of
Yeah,
the screen,
I've
right?
got it there. It's
at the bar.
Something different has happened. Anyway, I can't see myself, I can't see anything, but you can see what I'm looking at, which is the important thing.
Yeah.
So challenges you face when you engage in online teaching, challenges you face in face-to-face teaching when you try to get your students to speak English in the classroom. Here are 8 of some of the most commonly mentioned challenges that I hear from teachers in different parts of the world. Can you all see that okay? I'm just double checking.
Yes, we can. Yes,
Great.
we can, Jason.
So we got students lacking confidence, students finding it too difficult. They may not like working with pairs or groups. They do it wrongly. Too many use Russian. There's too much noise. Russian L1 here, whatever the language is, it may be different languages in different parts of Russia. They begin to misbehave or now lose control of the classroom during pair or group work. Some of you are already putting your answers in the chat, which is great, no problem about that. If you want to go to menti.com and use the following code, he said, hopefully, having just had difficulties with technology. Let's see if we can get some responses to the Menti questionnaire about which of those. Take your time to think carefully about it, because I'm interested to know which ones are the main challenges that you face, and we'll see if we can show those afterwards. Yes, and the code is 85, 43, 28, and 6. Oops, no, that was just sent to somebody privately. There we go. Oh, great, we've got a couple, brilliant. Yes, Zoom seems to be changing some of its settings. I've never had this problem before, but it's really weird. Things have hidden themselves and I can't get them back. And I've got the option to hide things, but that makes it even worse. So. Great. Well, I've got a few responses. Alina tends to forget all of the challenges. 1 and 2.
Mhm.
Starting to get some responses. Shall I share that now? Let's see if I can do better with my tech use. Okay, so on the, can you see that?
Yes, we can.
Great. So these are the responses. If you're working, this is something I've seen it used well in a lecture theatre using Menti. And you can create an account at Mentimeter and get some feedback from participants in a talk or whatever. And it's quite interesting when you've got fairly big numbers like we've got here. It enables us to prioritize what are the biggest issues. So we can see clearly that the last one, losing control of the class, isn't an issue. Misbehavior isn't an issue. Students doing it wrongly isn't an issue. And noise isn't an issue. Noise can be a big problem in some classroom contexts around the world, excuse me. But we've got three of the challenges that I kind of expected, some of the most common ones there. Students lacking confidence to speak English, students finding it too difficult to speak, and too many students using their L1. So let's focus on those ones now. And I'm going to go back to the slides. Cool, great. So, and we've had some there in the online chat. I'm just going to have a quick look. It's mainly 1 and 2 I can see there from Elena, Maria, Julia. Who else we got there? 3 as well, a few, 1 and 5. But it's interesting actually, the same kind of challenges, and they do remind me to some extent of a challenge that people used to say in Ukraine, and they always used to say it in Russian. They used to say "Я как собака." Все понимаю, но ничего не говорю. I don't know if that's the common saying in Russian, but I remember people saying that to me. And so it's this lack of confidence or finding it difficult to speak. So what we obviously need in these kind of situations is some kind of scaffolding. And scaffolding situations. So before I present some kind of ideas for how to build up confidence and to make it easier for them to speak, thank you, Olga. Let me find out a little bit about your opinions and ideas. So your students lack confidence, they find it difficult. What do you do to help them increase confidence and to reduce the difficulty of getting your students to speak? Push them, Julia. So you're quite assertive with them, Julia. That's your approach, because there's 2 different options there. You can be assertive or you can be kind of, what's the word, encouraging. Provide models. Vera, what do you mean by provide models? Do you give them models of what? Texts? Conversations? Follow me. So Irina, what do you do? Do you do a drill? You say it first and get them to speak after you? Elena, setting examples? Speech patterns, Irina? Okay, mini groups, that's very important. Yeah, so really create a pleasant atmosphere. So Irina, that's important for you. Demonstrations, yeah, all of these sample structures, yeah, all of these are such very obvious and useful points. Modeling, oh great, Ekaterina, give example to your influence. Yes, exactly, yeah. Examples, act out a dialogue. Kids can then repeat after me. One important point, those of us working at secondary level, that somebody there just mentioned, do not make hot correction. Ekaterina, a really important point that secondary students will respond often quite negatively to correction that's provided while they're speaking in front of peers, and that's because of the confidence issue. And I think that's a really important piece of advice there. If we stifle them with too much correction, it can have a negative effect. Acting out dialogues with one of the students. So this is really interesting. That's the example I'm going to just show you now, actually, if I may. Can you see this slide now? Students lacking confidence, finding too difficult. The very obvious point is, and you've kind of all suggested it, is to take what I call baby steps, little steps towards the solution in question. So things like reading out a dialogue for the students, and then memory games. So students who are at the kind of lowest level of confidence, giving them a dialogue to read in pairs. The dialogue, what it will be, will depend on your context and what your learning aims are, what kind of speech you're interested in promoting. But a very obvious point is to play memory games with the dialogue so that they read it out loud in a pair, obviously in closed pairs first of all. Getting students to perform in front of the class is too stressful unless they've actually rehearsed it in pairs or small groups. Reading out a dialogue first, and then what you can do is you can get one of the 2 members to hide their dialogue and try to perform from memory. And working in the pairs, whilst that isn't necessarily meaningful language use, it gives them an opportunity to try to remember the language, and that is likely to lead to some kind of embedding in the long-term memory. And that will be useful. The second option, reading out a dialogue with gaps for their names and details, what you can often do is take a role play dialogue and remove anything in there that is personal information so that the students can fill it with personal information that's true about them. And these are the baby steps that can lead us towards greater fluency. And this is something which has to be done regularly because the learners will need lots and lots of practice of such dialogues before they can move on to more fluent use. Reading out and completing an open-ended dialogue, I'll show you an example of that in a moment, and then writing a dialogue in pairs, then performing it for the class. That last one is a really classic option used in so many secondary classrooms I know. Tertiary as well, students, especially at lower levels, can often prefer to do that before speaking in front of their class. But it also gives them the option to practice bits of language that you've introduced, to interact with their partner as they discuss what to write. And they can also discuss using other languages if they want to, which again builds up that confidence in interacting with their partner first and foremost. So let's have a quick look at an example scaffolded dialogue. This is one which I wrote recently for some work I'm doing for British Council. And you can see what's happening here. It's a typical dialogue in a shop. It's kind of one of the simplest and most obvious things around the world that we can do for students to practice speaking skills. The nice thing about a shop dialogue is it's transactional, it's familiar to most learners, and there's plenty of question and answers in there. And students will often not need too much support when it comes to ideas for writing such dialogues. So you provide them with the dialogue, you create spaces in the dialogue for them to improvise. In this one, it's the lowest level possible, where all they're improvising is basic names of items, prices, and numbers. But you'll notice it's an open-ended dialogue, and it says at the end there, it says, "B, yes, I'd like." And then as they get to the end of the dialogue, that encourages them to continue, possibly to repeat the structure. But as they gain confidence in pairs, they're likely, hopefully, to become a bit more ambitious with their language use, and that will hopefully help with the confidence matter. But to emphasize this point that several of you made there, first and foremost, if you want them to speak in the classroom, pairs is the most comforting and often the easiest interaction, because the only other person that's listening to them is their partner, as long as they're speaking quietly. Whereas if you're getting students to perform in front of the class initially, that's when it's really high pressure for them. So first thing I would recommend is always to get them to do it in pairs. There's also very good pedagogical reasons. When you've got all the learners working in pairs, you've got 50% of the class, hopefully, practicing their speaking skills at the same time. Even though that may lead to noise, which becomes one of the other issues we looked at, it is still a very a possible option for building up that confidence before they perform in front of the class. Let me show you another example of a scaffolded dialogue. This is from a book that I wrote a few years ago now, available from Delta Publishing. Sorry, gonna have to do the Delta promotion there, called Role Plays for Today. And it's got lots of dialogues where there's a little bit of this looks like a typical kind of gap fill activity. But if you look at this dialogue, it's a very easy one to give the students an alternative set of details. So they change the prices, they change the type of room they want, they change all the basic details, the costs and so on, and they can then improvise their own dialogue. This one works as well quite well at secondary level, because you've got a hotel owner who is very, very keen to charge as much money as he can from the guest to make more money. And so students get the idea of that and they can practice it, usually building up their fluency. So there we go, scaffolded dialogues, a very simple idea, one of several that you have also suggested, which hopefully help to take learners through those initial stages of speaking English in the classroom. I know Natalia was talking about debates earlier, and that is another really important area where we can build that fluency, but it's also another one where the students often are under pressure to speak in front of peers. So debates can also be prepared for in pairs and groups of 3. Okay, now the other ones that because of time, I'm just going to move on to look at the other question, very interesting one about the use of the first language. There we go, use of Russian. So I was going to reveal this, to be honest, and then get some of your opinions, but I'd also be interested in your opinions as well. Now, the reason why the L1 is used, interestingly, often goes back to the other two reasons that we discussed, often because it's too difficult for them to do in English. And some of the solutions that you provided in our group chat list to provide them with useful phrases from Nadezhda, really, really important to build that confidence. And it means that then they don't have to revert to the L1. Reducing the use of direct correction is also likely to do it. And Irina's suggestion of creating a positive atmosphere, all of these are also going to help with the L1 use issue. Now, there's two kind of schools of thought here when it comes to the question of whether and how we stop learners from using other languages in the classroom. The first point I want to make is a really important, just a supportive one. If you find it difficult to get your students to use English in the classroom, you are normal. Your students are normal. This is the normal problem all around the world. It's only in adult private language learning contexts, in my experience, having worked at every level from primary up to adults, it's only in that context where you've got a group of monolingual learners and they can often agree, if that's the right word, to do what we ask them to do mainly or wholly in English. In other contexts, it becomes much more challenging, but maybe you've got solutions as well. So feel free to chip in some of your own solutions for the L1 use question, but I'm just going to put forward just a couple, which I've either developed myself or I've heard about from other teachers. So the English only approach is the first one. And this is one which we kind of promoted a lot in the past, but since we've moved towards the belief that multilingual classrooms, excuse me, that was my lunch, that multilingual classrooms are good places for learning. Anybody who's learning a foreign language like English sometimes needs to draw on their mother tongue to understand it, to think about it, to translate it, to check meaning. But if you're interested in kind of an English only approach, one strategy that I've seen some teachers use well, which is quite fun as well, and it works again in secondary contexts, is to have a yellow card, red card, just like in football. As a teacher, you can have two props, yellow card and red card. If you hear a group or a pair speaking a language other than the language you want them to speak, you can show them the yellow card. And if you hear that same group speaking the language again, you show them the red card. Now, what you do when you show them the red card, it doesn't mean that they're disqualified or they have to leave the classroom. But what you can do is you can maybe remove a mark from that team's score, or give them a little mark on the board to indicate that they've had a red card. And that can be used as a means to motivate the students to use more English in the future. The other one, which is a bit more draconian, a bit stricter, is, we've got two very different opinions there, which I want to come on to now. So Yulia is talking about punishing them if they use L1. That's definitely possible. If, for example, you've used a yellow card, red card approach, and it's appropriate, you might want to give them sanctions. And also if you, Tatiana is using a completely different approach there. Jokes, praising, discussing real issues, which gets them interested and involved. So Tatiana's interested in the motivational approach. What Tatiana is suggesting is the second approach I've got here. But before that, I will just go back to the English Police option. The English Police option is a simple solution for very large classes. If you really want to get only English, you nominate several learners per activity to become your English police, and they move around the class and take a note of anybody who says something in a language other than English. Now, what those English police can also do is they can make a note about what was said. So, for example, if a student says something in Russian, because they can't say it in English, the language police can make a note of it, they can share it with you as the teacher, and then you can show them how to translate it and say it in English. So the language police don't necessarily need to be there to punish, they can also be there to facilitate the move into English. The softly approach, as I call it, is often much more successful in my experience in classes that don't want to speak in English, or rather in classes where there are learners who don't want to speak so much English. Allowing the L1 first is the first point. So some classes, it can be so difficult that you allow them to do the activity in Russian first, and then you encourage them in pairs to write down what they said in English. So it's essentially speaking in L1, translating to written English. Encouraging translanguaging, this is something we're looking at a lot, including in my research. trying to use mainly English, but telling them that если вы не знаете что-нибудь на английском языке, it's okay to speak Russian. So combining languages in this flexible way whenever you can't say a word in the language that you're meant to be using. And this important point, which kind of links to Tatiana's, praising pairs and groups who use more English. Now have a look at what Galina has said there. Okay, Galina's gone for the English speaking zone sign. Yeah, point to the sign. It's a nice, simple solution, isn't it? I've always felt weird using the kind of the sign system. I completely understand that it's also going to be another motivational way because it's nice and fast to be able to point to that. And I suppose it's necessary in some classrooms, but I tend to be more a proponent of the softly approach. And Tatiana's suggestion, getting them interested and involved, which can of course lead to them using the L1 more because they're interested, they want to express their opinion. So I would say with the use of L1 question, the first thing I want to suggest is that there is no easy solution, and that we as teachers need to recognize that if our learners share the same first language, it is far more challenging to get them to speak English than in many of the classrooms in shall we put it, in multilingual classrooms, such as we have here in the UK, where students from different countries, they have to speak English to interact. So there we go. Now I'm going to zoom forward a little bit because I'm very much aware of time. And I want to show you, where is it now? Yes.
Jason, I'm very sorry. Maybe just a couple of minutes more, if you please.
Sure. Yeah. So let me move on to two tools which I've recently developed for informal classroom research. At the start, I was very interested in hearing your opinions about how you the challenges that you face in your classroom. And it would be interesting as well to get your feedback on using some of these tools. On this page here in my website, jasonanderson.org.uk, the resources page, you'll find two tools. You don't need to go there now, I'll just show you quickly. And they're just Word documents, which you can use for informal classroom research. The first one involves understanding a problem through focus group interviews with students. So if you've got a problem such as students lacking confidence, or that's what you think it is, or them using L1, a focus group can be a really useful way to find out more about the problem, find out specifically what the students are finding difficult about it, and that can often inform you how to do it. So feel free to have a look at that tool. And the second one is what I call a buddy observation, getting a colleague who you trust, a colleague who you respect, not necessarily somebody kind of senior head of the department, but somebody who you trust in your classroom. It could be someone more experienced, or it could be a friend, to observe your lesson and to provide them with details about exactly what you would want them to watch for. So what you seem to be having a problem with and why, and then getting them to answer some questions. And the questions are provided on this form, as you can see there. So there we go. A couple of useful tools that may be useful for your own classroom research for researching those challenges, and those can be found on this page here. There's also a link which I'll provide. I've put the slides on my website as well to this talk, which you'll be able to find in PDF form. So if you're trying to click on any of these links, I'm not sure if they're working through Zoom, but feel free to also access this incredible resource, the Handbook for Exploratory Action Research, which provides, if you're interested in researching in a bit more detail, it provides opportunities to do that. So there we go. Now, before I finish quickly, I'll just do a quick plug of the series that I'm series editor for Fidota Publishing. I'm quite proud of it at the moment. We've got our 4th title coming out. This is the one that Natalia mentioned, an activity from this book earlier for doing a debate. There's tons more here, activities for cooperative learning, and cooperative learning is, I think, a really useful tool for different classrooms when you're finding challenges getting students speaking. That's the one that Natalia was showing, Scotland's Energy Challenge. We've also got activities for task-based learning by Neil Anderson and Neil McCutcheon. If you're a task-based language teacher, this one will provide you with some really useful activities. Very proud of activities for inclusive language teaching, edited by Anne-Margaret Smith, and the IATEFL IP SIG, SENSIG inclusive practices and special educational needs special interest group. They've produced this book of activities that are specifically designed to help us to be more inclusive as teachers in the classroom. All of the Ideas and Actions book have a nice introduction that provides a teacher's perspective, but also with serious reference to research and to research papers, which you can draw upon as a teacher, read about if you're interested in that, and find out more about different aspects of the research, the theory behind the practice, plus also some micro strategies, which we've called the micro strategies. These are little things you can do in the classroom, pretty much in any lesson or in any activity. For example, on this page, we've got activities like pass the pen, where if students are having difficulty working in a group, just a simple idea that when they've written an idea, they have to pass the pen to somebody else, also called round robin, is one of many solutions in there. Plus also the books have all got lots of activities in them. And the book that's coming soon, I've just seen an early copy of it, and I know that's rushing to the press as we speak, Activities for Alternative Assessment by Leo Sullivan. Really interesting book. If you're having difficulty with assessment in your classroom, if you're having difficulty understanding things like formative versus summative, continuous assessment for learning, all of this terminology, Leo looks at that in great detail and provides a huge number of practical activities that you may find useful in your classroom. Great. Okay, I finished. I'm about 5 minutes late, which is, yeah, well, cool. There we go. Let me stop the sharing screen.
Yeah, thank you very much.
I can see you again now. It's really weird. Sorry about that, Natalia. It was the first time I've ever seen this problem, but as soon as I went on to sharing screen, everything, the whole thing disappeared. So you're all still there. That's great.
Thank you for your presentation. And I would say that, so this series, I mean, Ideas in Action, so it is fabulous. So very, very useful and hands-on activities, lots of them. Thank you very much.
Great. Well, thank you very much for having me.
And
I would love when this whole thing is blown over, inshallah. I would love to come to Russia and do a talk in person as well, practice my Russian again, which is getting a bit rusty after all these years, and come and see you there. Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And maybe again, a couple of words to Michelle, right? So where can we go now to see you in person?
Okay, I just posted the link in the chat to the virtual expo where you can just have a look around to see Jason's books and some other titles. And in the virtual expo, there is a Zoom link. Just click on that if you want to speak to me personally. I will be on that link for the next hour. I need to log in now once I've logged out, and I'll wait there and come in and visit and have a chat. Love to see you. And thanks, Jason. Great talk.
Yeah, and again, so we cannot see the link now. Can you please?
Oh, I did post it before.
In the chat. Yeah, it was.
Yeah, but it was, but so now we cannot see it.
There's lots of chat. It's probably gonna.
Yeah,
there's lots of chat.
Lots of thank you. Lots of thank you.
Yeah,
Jason.
Lots of feedback. Hold on 1 second. Oh, well, put it in again. There we go.
While you're doing that, Michelle, just quickly to say, if anybody does make use of any of the resources here, always happy to hear from you. You can obviously via Delta Publishing, you can contact me, but there's also a contact page on my website if you use any of the research resources I mentioned. Thank you. Sorry.
Thank you. Thank you. Dear colleagues, one more notice. Thank you very much, Delta, for just supporting us, and thank you, Onara, right?
Pleasure.
In our project. I do believe our will be developing. As for the presentations and the video of this webinar is gonna be here. Just a second. So share. Okay, now you can find them, the video and the presentations of the first webinar. So I suppose by Tuesday we'll place today's webinar and the materials. Okay, so Jason, you don't mind sharing your presentation, do you? Okay, thank you very much.
Just to say, if you want, it's actually on my website already. So if you go there, you can share it wherever you want to. There's lots of slides in there for all the other challenges that we didn't have time to talk about. But feel free.
Unfortunately.
Don't worry. I put them together just in case people wanted to talk about them. But feel free to share it from there, to grab it from there. Thank you.
Okay, and getting back to the content of our program, joint program of ONARA and Moscow International Academy. Just a second, just to share what I have. To remind you that you have, just a moment, the options. If you are interested in getting a certificate, state recognized certificate of the Moscow International Academy, so don't hesitate to contact us. So I'm sharing my screen, just a second. So you can see the webinar schedule. Our next webinar is going to be next year, 22nd of January, and we'll be talking about critical thinking. Okay, and as for the options, I'll just want to remind everybody here that you have two options. You'll get, if you are on the free of charge basis, you get ONARA e-certificate after each webinar, webinar presentations and materials in the link which I sent in the chat. So, and Moscow International Certificate if you attend 5 webinars. Okay, and if you opt for the paid option, as well as getting this free of charge materials, you'll have a chance to join our educational Moscow International Academy educational program, and you'll do the assignments. So there will be one assignment after each webinar. And then at the end, in May, you'll be granted a teacher training state recognized certificate of the Moscow International Academy. For further details, contact us by email, or if you want, you can make a call. Thank you very much.
And here's the link again, right? So let's meet there. So
yeah.
For maybe just for 5, 10, or even more minutes, right?
Yeah.
Bye for now, and see you in January. Bye-bye.
Yes, I think we wish you Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. At least it's just 3 weeks ahead, but still. And of course, great health. It's the most important issue.
Yeah. Stay safe.
Yeah, stay safe. See you at our next webinars.
Yeah, thank you.